So in this video, I want to show you how you can use the TI-84 to create or to compute the mean, the variance, the standard deviation, and then the coefficient of variation of a group frequency table. As you all know, a group frequency table basically has the values, the class intervals given on the one row and also the frequency that is given on the other. So you would see on your screen we have a simple question here that says that the starting salary of a sample of college students are given below. So in this group frequency, you have the class intervals that has to do with the, the starting salary, and then you also have the corresponding frequency. What you will need to do is to find the midpoint. So let me create some space in between the frequency and the class interval so we could write a midpoint. Now, the midpoint can be found by taking the lower class limit, adding it to the upper class limit of a particular class, and then dividing the result by 2. So for example, for the first one, we could take 20, add it to 24, and divide the result by 2. Now 20 plus 24 will give us 44. You divide by 2. So then we could say x, which could be the midpoint, will be 22. Now because the class width is 5, in other words, you add 5 to 20, you get 25. You add 5 to 25, you get 30. You add 5 to 30, you get 35. So it's stepping up by units of 5. So we can use the same idea to find the subsequent midpoint. So why don't we just go ahead and find them? So the next one, we have 27. Next we have 32. Next we have 37. Next we have 42. Finally we have 47. So these are the midpoint. Now this question wants us to find the mean, the variance, the standard deviation, and at the end also to find the coefficient of variation. To find the mean and the standard deviation using the TI-84, this is what we will do. So first let's put on the TI-84. Alright, so let's put it on. Then what you're gonna do next, you're gonna go to start and then edit, start edit, so you can press enter. That brings you a table. Now if there are values already there, for example I have the values already pre-printed and you want to clear the values, take the cursor to the value. Alright, so you could move the arrows. You see I can move the arrows. So take the cursor so that the L1 or the column that you want to erase is highlighted, and then click clear and then press enter. Alright, so let's do that for L2. Bring the cursor here, click on clear and then press enter. Now bring your cursor to L1 and you can now enter the midpoint. So you would usually enter your midpoint as the X value under L1. So why don't we go ahead and then work on that. So we have 22, enter, 27, enter, 32, enter, 37, enter, 42, enter, 47, enter. Now that we have entered the midpoint, we're now going to enter the values of the frequency. The values of the frequency should be entered under L2. So let's go ahead and enter those values. We have 1, enter. We have 3, enter. We have 7, enter. We have 6, enter. We have 2, enter. We have 1, enter. Now we have the midpoint and their corresponding frequency. After you are finished with this table, you're now going to go to start. All right, so press start and then move the cursor to calc. All right, and then on the calc you are looking for number 1, which is 1 var start. So press enter again. So you have the 1 var start. For most cases, you may have already under the list, you may have L1 there already for you. If you don't have it, suppose it is clear and it's not there. Let me just say you don't have the L1. What would you do? You're going to press second and you will press 1. So to get L1, you press second and you press 1. Now I can bring the cursor. Let's also take, suppose you don't have the L2 here. What would you do? You're going to press second and then you're going to press 2. So that brings you L2. And then you bring your cursor to calculate and you're going to press enter. Now when you press enter, that calculates the values that you need. So now that we have the values we need, let's see if we could answer the question now correctly. Okay, so x bar is the mean. So the mean is denoted as x bar. All right, so the mean is denoted as x bar in the TI. So we're going to say x bar, which is 34. So the mean is 34. Now the TI do not give you the variance directly. However, the TI do gives you the standard deviation. But here you have to be careful. You have to know whether you have been, the question is asking for a sample standard deviation or a population standard deviation. How do we know? Go back to the question and find out what is happening. Now this question said that it is a sample. Alright, usually though, if the question does not mention anything, by default you would assume that it is a sample data. Alright, so but specifically in this case we have been told that it is a sample data. So because it is a sample data, what we would do next would be to write the value. Now which standard deviation corresponds to the sample data? In the TI, when you see XX, it means the sample, standard deviation. And then sigma x means the population standard deviation. Alright, so in this specific problem we are interested in the sample standard deviation. So based on what we have, it is, so XX is 5.938. It's a good practice to keep 3 decimal places. Now that we have the standard deviation, we can conveniently find the variance. Now to find the variance, all you have to do is to square the standard deviation. So the notation for sample variance is x squared. So we're going to say we're going to take 5.938 and we're going to square that value. We're going to square the quantity of 5.938. Now if we get to our calculator to calculate that, we have 5. All right, so let's see. Let me start again. So we have, we could put it in parentheses. So we have 5.938, and then we are squaring that quantity. All right, so we square that quantity, and let's see what it gives us. It says that is 35.2, so we could say 35.23. So the variance will be 3 5 point, well, let's stick to norm, so that will still be 35.23. So that is our variance. Now finally, so one may ask, what is the coefficient of variation? The coefficient of variation is the standard deviation divided by the mean. Alright, coefficient of variation is the standard deviation divided by the mean. Now we know the standard deviation is 5.938, and then the mean happened to be 34. Therefore, we can use our calculator to do that. 5.938 divided by 5.938 divided by 34, and we have an answer of 175.175. So in a nutshell, that is how you can use the TI-84 to find the mean, the standard deviation, the variance, and then the coefficient of variation. Thank you very much for listening.